So on one of my previous videos, a guy named John Linton commented and asked, hey, I noticed that when I'm improving a skill, like taking something and trying to iterate it, make it slightly better, it's easier to focus on than if I'm trying to do something completely new that I've never done before, and I can never remember to do it. Like by the time the game's over, I realize, oh, I didn't even practice that at all this entire game. So I want to talk in this video, welcome to Mind Games TV number 13. I'm going to talk about new versus improving something that you already have laid down. So first of all, it's really important to understand that when you're improving a skill, what you're doing is you're taking a motor movement, whether it's like kicking a soccer ball or hitting a key at a certain time. You're taking a motor movement that is cued, visual information to your brain, motor movement coming out, and you're improving it. You're trying to make it better or more refined or obey different executive decisions in terms of when you would initiate the movement, okay? And so you have to take what you already learned and improve it. You have to take a worse routine, a worse movement, a worse visual cue, a worse decision, and you have to add more data to it if it's a decision, or refine the movement with precision if it's just the motor side, or work on your reaction speed at recognizing a pattern if it's the optical side, and you have to get it slightly better. So you're really trying to slightly modify your neural framework to make it an improved version of itself. Now, actually what you're doing when you learn a new skill, quote unquote, is the same thing, because think of it in terms of soccer or football if you're in Europe. So you want to go and learn how to kick a soccer ball, and you've never kicked a soccer ball before. Well, you have the skill of kicking, which is, here, and you want to make it better. So it's not a new skill. You could actually probably swing your foot and kick a soccer ball. New skills are probably things like when paraplegics are learning to walk again, which is actually something they're starting to have success with in certain research labs. So taking this to esport, people say, oh, I want to learn a new skill like looking at the mini-map, and I've never done that before. So the skill that you have is playing without looking at the mini-map. That's the skill that you have, and you want to make it slightly better, such as playing while looking at the mini-map or the radar or being aware of where my team is. So picking up a new skill, same thing. You have to overwrite or overrule or change what is currently there for your behavior patterns and replace it with something better. Same principle applies. Same mental focus. Now, mental focus is the key to doing this, because you can repeat yourself through a pattern a lot without focus and learn it very slowly, or you can repeat yourself through a pattern with a lot of focus and learn it very quickly. And motivation helps with that. So I strongly recommend things like preparing your motivation, like getting motivated, watching videos of amazing people doing what you're talking about beforehand, watching motivational sport videos, whatever it takes. Also, imagery helps oil the channel. So if you, for example, sit here and you imagine yourself running up to a soccer ball and kicking it, I don't mean just imagine it like a movie. I mean you visualize yourself doing it. You play it out in your mind. You can actually activate the same set of neurons that would execute the movement all the way to your muscles. They go all the way there and then they stop. So you can actually oil the learning channel a little bit by doing imagery beforehand to try to make it more likely that you'll remember in the heat of the moment and get a chance to practice that new skill. Other tips that I have relate to essentially to essentialism. Okay, this is going to be a funny sentence. Relate to essentialism. Like if you're trying to focus on learning a very specific thing and you can't remember to do it, it could be because you're distracting yourself too much, and you need to drill that specific thing somehow in a small way before you bring it into a game or a live scrimmage situation that has many different variables that you need to account for. When you're in a scrimmage situation, you're learning all the time, everything you're doing, and it's really hard to focus on a particular point of learning. So you have to break it out, get creative, and find a way to drill it where you are getting that motor movement, that chain of expertise drilled a little bit beforehand and prepared, so when you go into the game, it happens more naturally, that you can just slightly work it up. Okay, now I think that we're going to learn a lot about learning in the near future as we study AI, because one of the things I noticed about AI demonstrations as they are learning video games is that they do not learn the same way that humans do, in that we presume to have the idea that you should learn first the very basic skill, then you should get good at that and perfectly master it or whatever, and then layer on the next one. So typically in League of Legends, what that means is like you work on your CS, and then CS ability. And then you work on your trading while you CS. And then you work on your trading while you're CS and map awareness. So you're layering these skills on top of each other as you learn them. You're supposed to focus on one in order to learn it. Now, the same thing is true in Counter-Strike, for example. You're supposed to work on your aim. Then you're supposed to work on your map strategy. And then you're supposed to work on your grenades and things like that. So you're supposed to isolate these skills, work on them, start with the basics, the most fundamental things, the most impactful things, and work up from there. If you look at AI learning, what you'll see is that they start with the end goal in mind, which is how do I win this game? And they start trying to do that right away. And what happens is it looks like for a long time that they suck because they're missing very basic skills by this much. And you're thinking, wow, if they just practice that very basic skill, they would be better at it, and they're stupid and they're not a human, so they can't pull it off. But what they're focusing on is the most complex strategic whole package that they need to achieve victory. And that's the skill they're practicing. And they're practicing all of the skills at the same time. So that when they finally get it, they are making very basic mistakes, but then they're making very incredibly advanced moves on the other hand. And this is actually how humans learn under the surface. When you learn to kick a soccer ball and they say, okay, just learn to pass, you're programming in all of the abilities that you would need for the game, and you're learning that pass in the setting that it's in very ineffectually, because you're never going to be using it like you're using it in a drill. You're only going to be using it like you use it in a game. And this is the reason that scrimmages are such a powerful training technique in esport, because when you're playing against another team, you're practicing all of the skills you need to achieve victory, not just breaking out and doing drills. So I'm kind of conflicted with this as a coach, because I know that drills are very useful and powerful for refining techniques at the high end, but I think that at the low end, it's much more useful to think of things holistically in terms of what is the absolute maximum that I can achieve or that I can focus on in terms of winning. I want to focus on the most complex skill, and I want to try to do everything necessary in that whole chain of actions to get to that point, and I'll be practicing it as it goes. And what you'll see is I'm going to use League of Legends ladder ranking. You'll see people who drill and focus on all the things. They might improve very rapidly at the start and then plateau for a long time because they've embedded really bad or not optimal motor movements into their head by drilling. And you'll see people that are focusing on the meta, on the biggest thing, they will be bad for a long time because they're missing very basic abilities over and over again as they focus on the whole package. But then all of a sudden, things will click and coalesce, and they will skyrocket through. And I think if you go listen to my podcast that I did with Alish Fries, who is an AD carry who plays in the European scene with Copenhagen Wolves last season, you'll hear about his training style where he was kind of very rapidly gaining skill in the game, and it had to do with the fact that he was focused on the end goal, which is to pro level play, and he wasn't trying to break it down to very minute little things and work on it for years in order to improve that and build on it. He was just I need to do the whole package now. So I think that our study of AI in the future is going to really impact how it is that we conceptualize learning in humans, and more or less how we do learning. So, because I think that we have some scientific conceptualization of how this works in neurology, but we don't teach that way in sports. We coach in a very different manner, and I think that might evolve as we learn more and more about expertise and mastery. Okay, where's the button? Okay, there we go. Yeah, so that was my episode today. It was a little bit longer than normal, almost 10 minutes, and so thanks for sticking with me. It's a little chilly today, hence the zipped-up turtleneck. People keep accusing me of wearing turtlenecks and going crazy with this fashion, but I'm telling you it's not fashion. It's just freaking freezing in Finland. And since it's cold all the time, you got to keep yourself warm. Hence, I'm starting to grow a beard and longer hair, and we'll see how that works. Usually in the winter, I get really scruffy for sanity's sake, just so I can survive. It has nothing to do with fashion. It's just I don't want to be cold.